Limit is t goes to 9 of t squared minus 9t over 3 minus the square root of t. First thing we're going to do is try plugging a 9 in for each of the t values. In the numerator, that'll give us 9 squared minus 9 times 9. In the denominator, that will give us 3 minus the square root of 9. 9 squared is 81 minus 9 times 9, which is also an 81, over 3 minus the square root of 9, which is a 3. In the numerator, 81 minus 81 is a 0. In the denominator, 3 minus 3 is also a 0. We have the 0 over 0 indeterminate form. We will need to rework this. Since we have a root combination, a root involving the variable t, added or subtracted together with at least one other term, that's happening here in the denominator. There's our root combination. We're going to be able to use the root conjugate method. We'll have limit is t goes to 9 of t squared minus 9t over 3 minus root t. We're going to want to multiply the 3 minus root t by its root conjugate, which is 3 plus root t, opposite sign between the two terms. We're going to have it over itself so that we have a form of 1. We don't change the value, we just change the look. Now you only want to FOIL out the root conjugate pair. That's happening in the denominator. We're not going to want to FOIL out the non-root conjugate pair in the numerator. So the numerator is going to stay as t squared minus 9t times 3 plus root t. In the denominator, we will FOIL that out. First, 3 times 3, that's a 9. Outside, 3 times root t, that's a positive 3 root t. Inside, negative root t times a 3, that's a negative 3 root t. And then last, negative root t times a positive root t, that'll be a negative t. The outside and inside terms will always be able to cancel with a root conjugate pair. That leaves us with limit is t goes to 9 of t squared minus 9t times 3 plus root t. We haven't done anything with the numerator just yet. Over 9 minus t. Now we still have 0 over 0. We haven't removed that just yet. We've become power functions here, and we are producing a 0 in the denominator because of that as t goes to 9. And in the numerator, it's because of that. It's going to be 81 minus 81. They cannot cancel just yet. We're going to need to factor this. We're going to factor a t out of there. And I believe that'll give us a t minus 9. So we're going to need to factor a negative out of this one down here so that they match each other. If you don't factor a negative out of the denominator, they won't be matching quite. So let's factor a t out of the t squared minus 9t. That will leave us a t minus 9. And in the denominator, let's factor out a negative 1, because by doing so, the t becomes positive and the 9 becomes negative, and now the factors match each other. And these are the factors that are making the 0 over 0. We're going to be left with a negative 1 in the denominator. Dividing by negative 1 is the same as multiplying by negative 1, so when I rewrite this, I can just rewrite it as negative t times 3 plus root t. Since I no longer have the 0 over 0, I can now plug the 9 in for each of the t's. I will have negative 9 times 3 plus the square root of 9. It's going to be negative 9 times 3 plus the square root of 9 is a 3, which is a negative 9 times a 6, which is a negative 54.